All right, everybody, welcome to BO Boys for Wednesday, July 10th. Fuck it, it's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat. Clayton, I got a smile on my face because you don't have a smile on your face, because Kevin Costner doesn't have a smile on my face. I got a smile on my face, and we got another smiler coming in here right now. This is a big news day, big weekend preview day, so we had to get the whole BO family together. So here he is with a big old smile on his put'em. Here is Wanna BO senior intern Christopher joining us on the BO Boys. Welcome to the BO Boys, Christopher. Welcome back. And I got to start by asking you, I know you were traveling.
Mm-hmm.
How was your travels? Were you just in the United States or did you go abroad?
Oh, I went abroad. I did a whole European. I took a lesson from one of my favorite BO boys. Went on a European vacation. Didn't sign any baguettes, sadly. I was really looking forward to that, but I did make sure I got to see at least one movie while I was there.
That's great. I love it. European vacation. The kids are learning well. You got to get out of the States once in a while. Meanwhile, if you are watching on our YouTube channel, where you got to go to get the whole story, you would see that Clayton is back out in the cow fields, and he's got his bib jeans on. And Clayton, let's start with the big news. It was announced.
Well, can
today.
I say something really?
Okay.
Can I say something really quick?
I was going to set you up to talk about the big news about your fellow, salt of the earth there, Kevin Costner. We'll get to that, Clayton. He's got to say something. So
I think it's disappointing, and I blame you, Pat, because you always blame the parents. That in this time of need domestically at the box office, sure, we've had some hits. We've had Inside Out 2 doing spectacular business. We had Minions doing their Minions thing, or at least, Despicable Me. To encourage young people to take their box office overseas, I think is not optimal, right? That is something that I think should be allowed and implemented once domestically we are shored up. I mean, that I think is something we can all agree on, is that there's no reason to be paying francs, is it, to see a movie in France when you could be spending dollars at the cinema at home. That's all I'm going to say.
Clayton, when is the last time you've left the United States?
I've never left the United States.
You've never left the United States. Wow. So we're talking not even Mexico, Canada. Never left the United States.
Never Mexico, never Canada. Hawaii's the closest thing.
And Hawaii, so the closest you've come to leaving the United States is staying in the United States.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
So that, people may come up with all sorts of reasons for why you've never left the United States, but the main one is because you're that committed to domestic box office. You just will not spend your dollars on any non-domestic movie box office.
No, we don't cover worldwide here, international. I mean, once in a while we talk about $1 Billion Babies because you have to. That's such a landmark. It's such a thing to hit. But yeah, I think, once we shore up this domestic box office, then go ahead and travel. But until then, you need to stay here, and we need to keep theaters thriving. On this land.
Right.
On this in this heartland.
Well, I mean, I will say in advance, I will be traveling abroad in August, and so I will be taking my dollars to foreign box offices for the month of August. So possibly my trap money is going to be spent outside these United States. Possibly my Borderlands money spent outside these United States.
You won't be. You're going to wait till the end of August to see Trap. Trap comes out the 2nd.
Trump comes out the 2nd. I mean, I'll see if I am able to see it in the States. I'll see it in the States. But if I have to see it
seems
abroad,
like he's more committed
abroad.
to worldwide box office than domestic right now.
What an interesting, and because this is going to go right into Horizon, because you open this episode, just grinning like a Cheshire cat, so happy that Kevin Costner, one of the great all-time stars, that can't be denied,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
it has to it made a mutual agreement with Warner Brothers to pull the second part of Horizon from the calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And you were happy about this. So you're happy about this. You were smiling. You were happy about that.
I was smiling because you were upset. That's why I was
And-
smiling.
But see, here's the thing: is that if you take me out of it, just
Right.
whoop,
Which
then
we can do.
what you're
Yeah.
we very well, Christopher, watch it. When what you're taking out when you take me out is then there's a straight shot between Pat and being happy that a movie does poorly.
No, no,
Which
no,
is
no,
something
no.
which is
Not
shut
a
up.
movie.
Which is
not,
shut up. Which is
no, shut up.
something
No,
which
shut
is
up.
something that we have been targeted for in reviews about Snivel War, about Marvel, about Pixar. We've been targeted by people who've said we want movies to bomb. And we have said that is not the case because that is not the case up until now. Up until now, when
Okay.
you sat there grinning at the misfortune and the possible unhousedness of Kevin Costner,
Well,
like that to me is worse than you going to France and spending your hard-earned, well, your money at the cinema.
so let's actually state what the news is because this just broke.
I said it. I said it
well,
during my rant. If you're listening to my rant, you heard it.
that the Horizon Part 2 has been pulled
See,
from
you're not. You don't
theaters.
even listen. You don't even
Has
listen when
been
I
pulled
talk.
from. Well, you know, sometimes I drift off and I start thinking in other languages, and
I would have
you're out
said
in the cow field speaking American English, and it's easy for me to ignore.
I would have said you were polishing your Star Wars Lego, but I see it right behind you. I see it
Oh,
behind you
yeah.
for all the people.
Holding
So
it through a business associate.
there we go.
How much longer are you holding it to when it becomes yours? Because I feel like it's been there for a while at this point.
It will be here for months and months.
Oh, so it is yours.
It will be. It's not mine. But I will be holding it for months and months. But this Horizon news. So this was due to come out August 16th. Now pulled off the calendar. Is this not been pushed? This is not. Oh, we're actually going to release this on the Friday before Thanksgiving because that's a more up. It's been pulled. So let's start with the why. Why do you guys think this has happened? Because it's the box office for part 1 has been bad, but I wouldn't say it's been the worst case scenario. You know, there's a scenario in which this opened to double digits and is at 15 million. But why do you think now this is the decision they made?
Well, can I say something really quick?
Yeah.
Because I think they listen to the BO boys.
Okay.
Because what did we say a few episodes ago about this release strategy? Is that it needed more time for people to find this first part and then be aching to see the second part. Because with the way oldsters move, that they move slow. They wouldn't even see the first one until August 16th, right? If they had their druthers. That's the thing that is smart about this. And the Kevin Costner's willingness to pivot here, I think, shows a lot about this gentleman because he was ambitious and he went for it, but he also knows when to hold him, fold him, right? But he's not folding. What he's doing is giving this a chance to breathe, which I think is smart in the way to go. And I think they're saying the next part is going to be theatrical. So we saw what happened with Dune Part 1 and Dune 2, how the anticipation for the second one was built by people's enjoyment of the first one. I think if you get enough people to, this is going to clean up on PVOD. It's going to do well on Max. We've heard that it's going to be on Max.
Right.
So it doesn't have a Max
dollar
date.
bins at Walmart. It's going to be huge.
Yeah.
And that's what he wants. I mean, he wants the Walmart people. DVDs. I mean, you're joking. You know, you're being glib. But
having a laugh.
Having a laugh.
Taking a piss. But the DVD sales on this are going to be really high. And so there will be anticipation where the only way you can see the second chapter of this is going to be at the theaters. And I think that will happen. I do not think this is going to be some sort of, let's just make it, you know, direct to PVOD, Redbox, or Max. I do think that the second part of this, the second chapter, will be in theaters.
Christopher, will our Horizon: An American Saga Chapter 2 ever be released theatrically?
Honestly, I don't know. I've seen a lot of speculation that he's going to go shop it to Netflix or Amazon or something like that, because honestly, who else is going to want to pay for a part 2 of after a part 1 bombed financially in the box office? Also, even though everyone thinks this is going to like maybe give it more time to find its audience, the audience reviews were not great. Like, it had a B- cinema score. So it already wasn't like crazy. Like, the difference between that and Clayton brought up Dune is Dune had an A cinema score, and basically everyone that saw it loved it. Horizon does not have that, I guess. So I don't know. There's a possibility, but I also would not be surprised at all if this goes to a streamer. And I think this is Kevin Costner. I think that people from the old neighborhood found him, and he's just like cutting and running, and he's gonna go find someplace else.
That's where my head is at right now, that this is not a long-term strategy, because Kevin Costner can't afford a long-term strategy. You know, Kevin Costner can't think in terms of what's going to be the best business move for 6 months or a year from now, because he might not be around at that point with the people that he's borrowed this money from. I do think he's got to make that quick cash. I think that is the move. Is Warner Brothers is not paying him to distribute these movies theatrically, so he needs someone to pay him now. He needs money in hand now. I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin Costner made this decision over the phone with someone holding a baseball bat above his head, right behind him. I think there's a chance Kevin Costner was being hung by his feet outside of a window when he called Warner Brothers and said, we have to pull the theatrical release, because he needs that quick cash. I mean, Clayton, do you really think Kevin Costner can afford? Because you're right. Maybe the second one would do better if people had time to find this on TV between now and then. But do you really think he can't afford that luxury of waiting to make his money on this 2 years from now?
Well, I think, why can't both things be true, in the sense that he made a smart business decision and he's getting quick money? Because sometimes the smart business decision is quick money. Because
Sure.
I also think when you're talking cinema score, when you're talking the audience not loving this, is because it's a different form of storytelling at the cinema than they're used to. So there's going to be sort of a confusion there. And all good artists have that happen to them, where they put out something new or they put out something different, and the normal people who go see movies, they can't wrap their head around it. So I think once people get to see this film and understand, I do think there's going to be a hankering for this at the theater. And yeah, quick cash is good in this right now. I mean, we'd all like quick cash, right? I think that this was a smart business decision.
100%.
I think going forward with the August release of that second chapter would have hindered the chances of a third or a fourth. I think this gives it new life. And if he spreads these out, then we could see these succeed at the box office.
But again, the quick cash is going to mean no theatrical, because the quick cash is probably Netflix or Amazon Prime saying, we'll give you $50 million for the exclusive rights to air this movie. That's the only way to get. There's no theatrical quick cash, though. Where's the theatrical quick cash?
Downstream. We're talking PVOD quick cash. We're talking DVD quick cash.
For the rights to the second one.
No, we're talking about the first one. He's going to make money off of PVOD.
It was already, but it was already
the case.
Yeah, it was already planned to go to POVD or PVOD on like next Tuesday or something. I think that was pre this announcement. I don't think that was any part of the business plan at all.
Right.
I mean, he's going to make, but the thing is, he will make money off of, he's going to make money off of DVDs and PVOD, right?
But not enough to cover how much he spent to make it. And the second one was going to make absolutely nothing at the box. The second one, I think, is the one where he's looking for quick cash because he's taken the second one. And I do agree. I think he's going to sell the rights to the second one to a streamer for the quick cash there. He needs a lot of quick cash. You know,
So
these
you think
these
that this
are
is going to
these are
happen
angry guys.
immediately? You think this is going to
I
happen immediately?
I don't know if the announcement of the deal will happen immediately, but I agree. I don't think the second one is going to end up in a movie theater beyond a sort of token vanity release. I do
Yeah.
think he's going to end up having to sell the rights to the second and the third one to a streamer, and maybe they'll say we're going to put it in 30 theaters for a weekend or whatever. But I don't think the second one will ever get a release like the first one did, because he needs the money, and the only way he's going to get that quick cash is a streamer saying sell your soul, and I do think that's what's going to have to happen. The Kevin Costner, after the career he's had, we don't want to see it all end by him being left in the street wearing a Colombian necktie, and
Yeah.
that is what he's facing right now after borrowing all this money.
Yeah, I mean, I still have hope for this to be a theatrical experience. I think this was a smart move. I think this is the move to do. We mentioned this move, so I think that this is something that is going to is going to help rather than hurt.
Okay. So
Because as you said,
you think he's going to hold off and not sell the rights for the second one to streaming, and he really is going to try. Him and Warner Brothers are going to find a real release date in the future for another full theatrical run.
he
That's what you think.
said several times on Instagram when he was talking about this first chapter, "I'll see you at the movies. I'll see you at the movies." He didn't say, I guess I'll see you at home. I'll see you on the toilet watching your
Right, right,
phone. Like, he didn't
right,
say, I'll see you on the toilet. He said, I'll see you at the movies. And I
right.
believe in that statement. I believe when people say things, they mean those things. And yeah, if his life is in danger, that's a different story. But he can
Right.
figure out a way to stab those or stave those people off until he's able to figure out a way to get chapter 2 in theaters. Now, we're not talking 3 or 4. Now, do I think 3 or 4 are going to be in the theater? That is a question. I mean, that's a question that we have to see again how 2 does. But I think 2 will be in the theater.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, also, God knows if we'll ever see Kevin Costner again, to be honest, because this is the type of move that you make before you fully go into hiding. That him pulling this, Warner Brothers might have said, listen, if you're going to go into hiding because you've got gangsters and you got thugs and you got, people with bats and guns coming after you, you're not going to be able to do a press tour for part 2. So we've got to pull this out of theaters. He might have tipped off Warner Brothers that he's about to get, some kind of face transplant, and he's going to be wearing wigs and he's going to be living underground, and then they said, well, if you can't promote, then we can't release this. So I do think this is the kind of move you make before you disappear.
I feel bad for Costner. We talked about this earlier. Bought those posters because there's no promotion money from Warner's. He bought those posters that say Chapter 1 in theaters this date, Chapter 2 in theaters 16th. That's a bummer because he thought he was saving money. But now when 2 comes out in theaters, he's got to print new posters. That's the only thing I'm upset about here is that Kevin, he spent so much money on those posters.
Yeah.
And if he takes those posters and he's able to create some sort of ersatz livable, tent from it, pasting them together thickly so that it can withstand the elements, then that's great because he just built himself a home with those posters. But I think he's not going to do that. I think it is going to be one of those things where he might just eat those. And by eat those, I mean, like, eat them.
Yeah, for sustenance.
As food, as sustenance. Yeah.
Yeah. So it all depends on the question of whether Kevin Costner could use his unused Horizon 2 posters to build a home. I think the issue there is he probably didn't buy the glass or plastic casings that the posters are put inside. You know, those are probably owned by the buildings or the billboards or whatever, and he just owns the paper posters. And so I think it would be hard for him to build a livable home with just the paper posters themselves without the glass framing therein. Also, I don't think Costner would want to build a home out of Horizon posters because it just makes him such an easy target for the gangsters and thugs who he borrowed money from, because then they would just know if you see a Horizon 2 tent, you burn it to the ground, you know? Yeah. So I on that one, I don't think he's going to live inside a home made out of his own Horizon 2 posters. Christopher, do you think differently? Do you think Clayton's right and Costner might use the unused?
No, I think you're completely the way you've been talking. I didn't grow up in the neighborhood you did, but the way you've been talking about these old neighborhood guys, they're scary. They're kind of scary to me.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine putting a big target as your house as a big target for where you are is the best idea, because they can come after you from anywhere and everywhere. They probably have more money than him right now after this Horizon movie.
Right. That's the thing about these old neighborhood guys is they'd have the money to just let Costner get away with this, but it's the disrespect that he showed by borrowing that money in the first place. Yeah. And I think that's why they're after him. You know, and you can't let word out that, oh, we let Kevin Costner get away with it, because you know, a couple of years from now, God knows what other actor is going to try and self-finance their own movie with mafia, and then they'll think they could get away with it. So they do have to kill him if he doesn't pay them back. That's just the respect, the principle of it. Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, I after all that, I will say this is a shame, because it could have been such a great triumph if this movie had been a huge success, open to 30 million, you know, became this summer Sound of Freedom type hit. And it would have been a real, this guy did it all himself type of situation that we all could have rallied around. But that did not happen. And listen, in the end, the audience rejected this movie. I mean, I don't think anything's going to turn this around. But
well, on the plus side, you got to open this episode smirking and being snide about it. So at least somebody won.
I'm not happy that this is a disaster. I'm not happy that Kevin Costner has to go into hiding. I truly am not. I was just tickled by you being upset, and that's it. It's between us. It's not between me and Kevin Costner or me and the box office itself. It's just purely.
But if you looked behind me, see, this is good. This is a lesson for everybody. You know, like if you looked behind me, like if I would have ducked, you would have been smirking and laughing at Kevin Costner. Like that's what it is. Because like I said, if you take me out of the equation, what do you have left? You have Pat of the BO Boys cheering for the loss of box office by a great auteur. Here, I'll give you something else to giggle about. Lena Dunham dropped out of Polly Pocket, another blow. So, you know, we've talking about Kevin Costner here. There's another blow for auteur filmmakers. I don't know if there's creative differences, what's going on, but Polly Pocket, one of those toys. It was a Mattel, I believe, right?
They announced that like right after Barbie came out, because they were like, let's start making all these toy movies.
Yeah. So, I mean, you say whatever you want about Lena Dunham. She's somebody who's made things that people have enjoyed. We've enjoyed in the past. And we don't know whose hands Polly Pocket or whose pockets Polly Pocket's going to fall into now, but we'll see. I mean, it doesn't look promising for it to follow in the footsteps of Barbie.
Yeah.
Do you think Kevin Costner goes to direct Polly Pocket because he needs some money?
I mean, you know,
I feel like he's the one who does Stretch Armstrong. I don't know if that's Mattel.
That would be a beautiful resolution to the story. If
Mhm.
with everything on the line, he needs this money, he needs to redeem himself. If Kevin Costner was the one who finally was able to crack the Stretch Armstrong movie, and that makes $1 billion, and the old neighborhood guys, they get paid off, that would be an incredible story, and I would love to see that. And then maybe because of the success of Kevin Costner's Stretch Armstrong, then Horizon 2 and 3 and 4 get released in the theaters. That would be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, so that might be a long wait then, you're saying, for the other chapters, because he'd have to finish another movie beforehand.
Yeah. And he'd also have to direct the Stretch Armstrong movie or the Polly Pocket movie, if that's what he gets, incognito, in his reconstructed face and wigs and, I guess like full body, body changeover suit or something, whatever he needs to wear to hide from these old neighborhood guys that he bought the money from. He'd have to direct the Polly Pocket movie like that. It'd be a lot, but it would make for a great story.
Now, we do have releases coming out, but there's just been such a big news day.
Yeah, it's huge.
And I think we have to, and now, Christopher, I don't know if you've seen this yet, because you might be, you just flew in from Paris. You're a late addition to the episode. It was just sort of sprung on all of us that you were going to be on this. So I don't know if you got a chance to watch the Gladiator 2 trailer.
Oh, of course. I've seen it like 3 times already.
Okay. So you've watched it. Pat watched it right before the show.
Yep.
I obviously watched it because I watch trailers. Pat doesn't. Let's give our takes on this, because this is a heavily anticipated sequel to a hit film. It's one of those legacy sequels that, when we saw with Maverick, can do really well. We've seen with the Scream franchise, until that cratered, that they could do really well. Also can go pretty badly. Just look at Axel F's streaming numbers, if you don't believe me. Now, since you're the guest, Christopher, and you're the youngster, you're in the Prime demo.
Yep.
And this is a movie that came out when you were very, very tiny, very small.
It was right. It was actually right before my time. It was 2 years before me.
Wow.
Okay. So, all right. So you weren't even born when the first one came out. We got to know, what is your take on this trailer?
I think the movie looks awesome, but for my generation, I like the first movie a lot. Like, it's definitely a really good movie. But from what I know, my friends and like all my college buddies and stuff like that have no real connection to the first Gladiator at all. But I do think like the casket, like, it does have Joseph Quinn, who is Eddie from Stranger Things, and everyone loved him. It has Paul Mescal, who everyone loves him. He's been on. I know he's like a streamo guy, but some people still like him. It has the Mandalorian. It has Denzel. So I do think the cast, and I mean Ridley Scott, and the trailer was like very, very good. I think it looks awesome, but I don't know how much people in my generation will care about a sequel to a movie I'm not even sure how many of them have already seen.
So the guys you hang out with, that you run around town with, once they do a keg stand, and then they suck the whole thing dry, shirtless, they stand up straight, burp, and say, "Are you not entertained?" They don't do that. They don't say, "Are you not entertained?"
They don't, sadly.
If you did that, like next time you do that whole thing, and you scream, "Are you not entertained?" would they be like, "Oh my God, Christopher's so clever. How did he come up with that?"
They might. That's honestly what they probably think.
Okay. I mean, that's a good test. You should try that to see.
Honestly, I will. I might. I have a party I have a party Friday, so I'll do that Friday and see what everybody says.
And then you can also see what their thoughts on Denzel are, because you can say, what should he say, Pat, after he takes down that whole keg on a keg stand?
Yeah, I do think that if he were to take down the keg stand and say that King Kong ain't got shit on me, I think the college kids would recognize that. I mean, would they, Christopher? If you were to you one room, you say, are you not entertained after you take down a keg stand? Then you move to another room, a different keg, take down a second keg, and you yell, King Kong ain't got shit on me. Would the college kids get that one?
Honestly, I'm not even sure I get that one.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. So
They would think about the collab. They would think,
They probably would. They'd probably think about the collab.
they would think about the
Christopher is
collab.
like, I'm going to take
Wow.
down King Kong, mechanized glove and everything. That's what they would think.
Wow.
They would not
So-
know that that was a famous quote, an Oscar-winning performance by Denzel Washington in a film called Training Day.
Yeah. That's the Training Day.
Oh,
quote.
that's
the
Training-
quote that won Denzel his
Mhm.
second Oscar. But
And-
the
and-
college
and-
kids
and-
wouldn't know it.
Great trivia for the college kids. Anxiety's dad is in that movie.
That's
Oh.
right. Anxiety's dad plays his rookie partner. Yeah. So, that Gladiator trailer, I am glad you liked it, Christopher. I have to say, I thought that looked very bad. And, this is what I'm about to say is the most cliche thing anyone could say. But I legitimately, because I was scrambling right before this episode to watch the trailer. I just had so little time. And I found a trailer. I start watching it. And sometimes when you watch a trailer, because there's like 100 versions of them on YouTube from all different websites, and I started to think a few seconds into it, did I pick a joke one where it was someone made it with AI? All right. I said the thing. Was this AI? Blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
That is how weird that trailer looked to me, where 10 seconds in, I had that thought that I picked the wrong video. And then I never fully believed that I had watched the right trailer. Clayton, did you have that thought at all? Or, I mean, basically, I thought this looked terrible. I thought it looks like it was filmed in COVID times. Like this to me looked like it was filmed in the Marvel warehouse where nobody met. But what did you think? I mean, do you think this looks like a proper sequel to a movie that won Best Picture and Best Actor when it came out? Not just a hit, but this is a Best Picture winner, and this is the sequel.
I agree with you, Pat. I think this, from the trailer, looks terrible and low rent.
Yeah.
And looks weirdly sort of like Ridley Scott's trying to do an anachronistic thing with this movie where the actors are acting as if it's these times. Like, I think Denzel, obviously, I love Denzel, one of the last remaining stars. Butts in the
King Kong
seats.
ain't got shit on him. Yeah.
Butts in the seats. And I love how he's playing that part, but it's like I feel like what Ridley's doing is trying to put some of the stuff he loved from Last Duel into this, and it's not fitting, because Last Duel was like a great film that was well made and heavily slept on. This looks like a very cheesy knockoff. This looks like Jarhead 2. This looks like those when they do the sequels to Cop and a Half, and it's like 20, 40 years later. That's what this looks like. And I love Paul Mescal. He's one of my, I really, one of my favorite movies. My favorite movie of last year was All of Us Strangers. He was great in that movie. He is miscast in this. He is not a tough guy. He might be in real life a tough guy, as in he's emotionally tough. He can lift a lot of stuff. This guy does not come off as somebody who is going to cut your head off. He just doesn't.
Didn't people think Russell Crowe was miscast when that first happened too? And like, look how great that came out. Or am I wrong about that?
Russell Crowe was sort of not that well known. He was a rough and tumble Aussie. Like, he was known as an actor, but he was a rough and tumble guy. Like, Pat, do you remember the conversation around that?
I don't, but I would be surprised if the tag on Russell Crowe at that point was he didn't seem tough enough. Because I mean, we'd already seen Virtuosity, and so
Mhm.
I think we knew he was a tough guy. I think it might have been, is he going to be that good of an actor at that
Yeah.
point?
Okay.
But I do think, if anything, it was the opposite, where he was this like street brute who people didn't know if he could hold it together in front of a camera. Whereas
And
Mescal, yeah, I mean, listen, I'm sure he can kick all our asses by virtue
oh,
of he's got, the best fitness trainers, and he probably learns MMA just as a exercise. So yes, he can wipe the floor with the three of us. That said, he doesn't seem like a tough guy on screen in the way that obviously I do. Obviously, Christopher does.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that it looks bad. I think though it's a bad trailer.
I
I
mean, I'm willing
still
to give it the benefit of the doubt. I think you're
yeah.
still thinking it was a movie that a trailer that a fan made cutting together other movies, which is sort of how I mean, I fell into that trap with Smile too, where
Mm,
there had only been a teaser and I was looking for the trailer, and it was definitely just a bunch of different movies with people smiling. Well, actually, it was a lot of footage from Blumhouse's Truth or Dare, a movie that me and Pat saw in theaters with the uncanny smile. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, I got fooled. So that wasn't an AI thing, but it was definitely a spliced together trailer. And I get why you felt that way. Like it was like they
yeah,
took some TV show that Paul Mescal had did in England. And then they did they took something that Denzel had done from 2005 that we don't remember, where he plays a Roman
right,
emperor, and they spliced it all together. Like it definitely
right.
feels that way. So and then it's got a Jay-Z song, which
That is the one thing I don't let us. I'm fine with like rap songs like that being in trailers, but when it's like a period specific type of movie, and yeah, they just throw in a rap song like that. That is the one I will give you that. Even though what I was seeing in the trailer, I still liked the rap song in the background. I think definitely could have
but it's
should have
like
been changed.
Jay-Z is I mean, listen, I'm not a big hip hop guy, but he is one of the greatest to ever do it, but he's not especially current in the moment. Like he has not had a huge hit recently. You would think, why don't you go with somebody new that is
Mm-hmm.
making similar music to make this not seem like this was a movie that came out in 2011?
What if instead of Jay-Z, Gladiator 2 had used the Lamar Kendrick diss song towards Drake in their trailer?
So you're gonna
I
want to
mean, that
switch
would have
those
made us
names
seem current.
around. Pat, you're gonna want to just
Yeah,
mirror image
it's
those.
Kendrick Lamar.
Kendrick Lamar, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
I was giving him the first name comma,
You just forgot the
last name
comma.
comma first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
just forgot the comma. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh,
Well, because
uh,
you because he's looking at his CD
Lamar Kendrick
rack.
is the parody act that I do of Kendrick Lamar.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I host bar trivia events. Yeah. So yeah, I think that would have been more current for sure if they had used either Kendrick Lamar or Lamar Kendrick, my parody act. I think either one of
Mm-hmm.
those in the trailer would have been more current. Definitely more current than Jay-Z. Yeah, I'm still looking forward to this movie, and I think they could recover, but this is a rough trailer. It looks like video game cutscenes, which is not
Mm-hmm.
what you want out of, kind of the biggest, one of the biggest live action movies coming out in the holiday season.
Yeah. But this could be Pat. I mean,
So,
this could be the Gladiator for the young generation. This could be that divide here where people don't have that feeling.
mhm.
It'd be interesting, Christopher, for you to talk, I'm sure other people on campus have seen this trailer, and
Mm-hmm.
to give us an update, boots on the ground, or flip flops on the campus. to what these youngsters are saying about this. I mean, do they look at Paul and they're like, this guy is the epitome of masculinity, which could be. I mean, it could be that we've evolved to that point where this guy who can be sensitive and strong is this, plays this part perfectly for them. But for me, I guess I've just seen him in too many sensitive roles. And I hope he turns my mind around. I hope it's like, there's a lot of people who saw Bob Odenkirk and was like, he can't be in an action movie. And now part of it is that it doesn't make sense he's in an action movie, and that's why nobody works. But, there's been actors that have definitely, I mean, gosh, I'm going to forget who just did this a year or so ago. Viola Davis.
In the Hunger Games movie?
No, when she did, what was that movie that actually was a hit and we're forgetting about it, but it was an action movie that she was in.
What movie was that? What movie is that? I can't think of this movie either.
You know what I'm
Viola Davis in an action movie.
I mean, it's not an action movie, but it's a similar sort of The Woman King. Remember The Woman King?
Oh, The Woman King. Oh my God! Okay. Of course, yes.
Like
yes,
that's and Kate Blanchett is about to do a Guardians of the Galaxy type of movie with Borderlands, and that's something that we were looking at that trailer and being like, she's in the wrong trailer. This could be the year or the next few years of actors breaking out of their typecasting. Yeah. It's possible.
It's definitely very possible, and I hope better trailers are to come. And I hope trailers that do focus more on Denzel. I think more than anything in this trailer, the problem is the only star in this cast is Denzel Washington, and this trailer did not really show him off. You could get away with all that other stuff if you make people think, holy shit, I'm about to see a Gladiator sequel that stars Denzel Washington. And this trailer did not do that nearly enough. Mescal and Pedro Pascal could become stars out of this, but they are not going to be the reason people go.
It's funny you say that, because as little as there was of Denzel, just seeing him back on the big screen in something that isn't an Equalizer, which I love the Equalizer movies, but it's just great to see him like doing anything on screen.
Yeah. So guys, is it going to be great to see Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson on the big screen this weekend? I mean, let's finally 40 plus minutes into this recording of the weekend preview, talk about the weekend movies coming out. Fly Me to the Moon is a Apple release that is getting a full theatrical release. It's going to be, speaking of Gladiator movies, it's going to be, what was the Joaquin Phoenix Napoleon style?
It's going to Killers of the Flower Moon.
Killers of the Flower Moon style. And Apple does not have a great track record. Yeah,
Pat, you're forgetting the stinker of all stinkers.
Oh, Argyle
of Apple movie. Argyle. Yeah. Oh, I mean, this is a bad track record in terms of box office.
I feel like Napoleon and Killers of the Flower Moon actually did pretty well for what they were, because in the end, none of these movies are expected to make money. It's all just the cherry on top of, like, it's just cutting back what they paid for. And honestly, I think Napoleon and Killers of the Flower Moon did very good for the type of movies they are. Argyle shit the bed. There's no getting around that. But I do think Napoleon and Killers of the Flower Moon ended up doing pretty okay.
Well, the arc of these Apple releases are going down precipitously. Yes. And the other thing that's happening is the creative teams behind them are going down. You go from Scorsese, the greatest living director, probably, or close to it. And then you've got Scott, who is good when he wants to be.
Yeah.
And then you've got
Matthew Vaughn.
Matthew Vaughn.
Yep.
Nothing needs to be said. And then you have Greg Berlanti.
Yeah, Greg Berlanti. Right? He's the guy that did all the like Arrowverse shows on the CW. That's like his like big claim. He's a TV guy. He's a huge TV guy.
Well, welcome back to TV because you are going to be in movie jail, my friend, because this thing is going to make $0. This thing is going to be a fucking catastrophe.
Wow.
Like,
Really?
nobody's
Okay.
going to want to see this movie.
Nobody will watch. I mean, it stars Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson, and Channing Tatum at least has had a good post-COVID run. You
Yeah,
know,
he
I
got
think
dogged
he's
to
been the
60
star
million,
of,
wasn't it?
yep. Lost City is made what 110 million domestic
Yeah, and
when it
yeah,
came out
that did
spring
really good.
2022. Um,
But
and then Magic Mike 3, but that was a whole, you know, HBO day and date, all that kind of stuff. That was not a well pushed movie. It was meant to be on HBO and then they released in theaters. So you've got a star in Channing Tatum that people do genuinely like and want to see. And Scarlett Johansson is, I think, very famous and very well liked. Whether she is a butts in the season movie star, we could debate that. But I think she is still someone who's very recognizable and popular. So
okay.
I think at least with the two of them, there is a draw to see this in the movie theater. I think the problem is this movie has no real promotion. And for a movie that is a mid-July release, it feels like there's been nothing I've seen other than trailers.
Here's the other problem. We've talked about this recently when we talked about the bike riders, because we talked about decades as IP. Now, we kind of were talking about it as broad, but as we know, having lived through, as a Gen Xer, Pat a millennial, Gen Z, right,
Gen X.
Christopher?
I think so. I don't know the
Gen
exact
X.
dates, but yeah, I think I'm Gen Z.
You've got to be Gen Z because it's 2000. You were born in the 2000s. So,
Yeah.
There's micro culture within decades. There's parts of the 60s that are the late 60s, the Vietnam Altamont 60s, and then there's the kitschy early 60s, which is what this is based on. Like, it's the moon landing. They're faking the moon landing. And this aesthetic, I'm going through my mind trying to find a movie that was a gigantic hit that had this look and this aesthetic. This is box office poison. This sort of kitschy 60s. That's not, I mean, maybe like Austin Powers, like somebody coming from that era and then coming to, because it makes fun of how stupid it is or how cheesy and bad it is. Or what was the one where Brendan Fraser, Blast from the Past? Like, I think that was maybe 50s. That could have been 50s. But this sort of thing, like Down with Love and like those sort of movies do nothing at the box office. This was a decision to waste Apple's money, was what this movie is. And wasting 2 stars that people like. And I don't know where this guy got his blank check to make this sort of project, because also it's a light romantic comedy, and romantic comedies don't necessarily do well at the theaters. I mean, we did see Anyone But You doing really well. If people are, this is bad that this is a movie that's following Anyone But You, because they sort of resurrected the box office for romantic comedies, and now this thing is gonna try and kill it again. Because you could want to see stars, you could want to see the stars that you like, but if the premise and the whole thing is unappealing, you won't see it. And I think that's what's going to happen with this. And then coupled with barely knowing this movie's coming out, this is just
that's the big thing.
Yeah, I think I've seen like no promotion. I've seen more promotion for the other movie that we'll talk about soon that's coming out this weekend than I have for this one.
And I think that's the more important movie, so I think we should move on. Sorry that I've been talking so much about this, but I'm very low on this. I think this is going to be another disaster for Apple.
My only question, how many conspiracy theorists do you think this is going to bring out? Like all the people who are finally validated that the moon landing was fake, Stanley Kubrick directed it, all those people. How many of those are going to come out of the word?
This is the tamest conspiracy theory that is going. Maybe back in the 90s when conspiracy theories were all like underground and there are people who had never heard the idea that the moon landing didn't happen. The fact that there is conspiracy upon conspiracy, and there's so many new conspiracies every day. These people are way past this. This is like training wheels. This is like a baby conspiracy. So the fact that they're going to be like, well, it's true. Like, what is this even about? Because that's true. There's going to be all the conspiracy theorists are going to be like, that's true. Why are they even making a movie about it? We all know this is fact. Like that, I think, is why this movie is not going to do well with those people. They are so far down the rabbit hole. They're not going to crawl out of the rabbit hole to see this thing, this quaint little thing about the moon landing not happening.
So do we think that, you talked about this kitschy 60s period and this movie takes place at NASA. Do we think that this is going to be hurt by the reception of Jerry Seinfeld's Unfrosted a month ago on Netflix? Because that movie also took place in the same time period.
Yeah, but no one watched that.
Basically, well, people did watch it. The problem is they didn't like what they saw. And so I do think that is going to be a factor when people see the commercials for Fly Me to the Moon. They're going to have those flashbacks to seeing Jerry Seinfeld's Unfrosted, which I guess was the 50s, but it's all the same. It's that aesthetic. It's that,
it's the pre-hippie 60s. It's the pre-dirty.
60s, yeah.
It's before the Beatles smoked weed.
Yes, this is before the Beatles smoked weed. I'm torn on this. I mean, I do think it's going to not do well more because of the lack of promotion from Apple. I do think there is potential for Channing Tatum being in a big romantic movie because that's the role in the end that audiences like him the best in. Action star, sure, but it's, as Scott Mendelson, our tribal chief, has said many times about Channing Tatum, people want him as a lover, not as a fighter. And casting him in a romantic movie with ScarJo is kind of a no-brainer. And even with this premise of the astronauts, even with the conspiracy theory being too tame for the conspiracy nuts, I still think there's a way this could have been a hit if it had felt more like it's getting a real release. And I think in the end, that's the biggest problem here, is that people just don't know it exists. You think the whole thing was doomed from the start, even if this was
this is a terrible idea for a movie. It's in this climate, it's unreleasable. I cannot believe that I think every movie should go to theaters, but I think this movie should not have gone to theaters.
Well, no, I got to disagree there. We can't say all that we say about Netflix and how they're ruining movies and they're trying to kill theatrical. And you've got Apple putting a movie with two big movie stars in 3,000 theaters this weekend. I commend them for that. This is a good thing. There are people who do bad things in the world, and Apple right now is doing a good thing by putting Fly Me to the Moon in movie theaters.
Listen, I'll agree with you. Netflix is evil. They're the devil.
Yes,
but when you look at something when you look at somebody like, and man, I'm going to keep praising Amazon and MGM. They know what to put in theaters. They are smart with what they put in theaters, and they make hits. Okay. Apple is not smart. They're not being smart. They're making decisions that affect other movie makers about putting things in the theater. The more stinkers like this you put in the theater, the less pressure for Netflix to free these creators and allow them to be in the theater. The less likely you're going to see Greta Gerwig's Narnia movies in the theaters, because if there's any pressure applied by audiences or stakeholders, then when you put a stinker like this in the theater, then it just weakens that argument. It weakens the argument that you need theaters.
But these theaters need this movie. These theaters are going to be happy that it makes.
No, they don't. They have LONGLEGS.
Or
they have Horizon.
They need no, Clayton. They need.
What are you going to do? So this is tracking above Horizon, Clayton. How disappointed are you going to be if this opens to more than Horizon did?
It's going to. It's going.
I think it might.
You think it's going to open higher than 11?
It's tracking at
Yes,
12
I think.
plus.
Yeah, it's
I
going to
think it
open
makes
higher
it
than
to like
11.
15.
Okay, well,
don't
let's wait
understand at
for our
all
top
in this.
fives for this.
Yeah, I
Okay.
in this climate where theaters are getting killed for lack of quantity out there, lack of products, Apple putting this movie out is only a good thing. Through the history of movies, sure, we wish studios would have made better movies. That's true of any time, any year. The 1970s at the time, people were probably saying, I wish there were better movies out in the theater. So the fact that they put this out rather than hold on Apple Plus only is a good thing. And sure, hopefully it would be better, but it's a good thing that this comes out. It's not going to hurt Greta Gerwig's chances of doing theatrical that Apple put this movie in movie theaters this weekend. It's just going to sell popcorn. It's going to sell tickets on American soil, which you said you care about, but now you want to hold back movies from American theaters and American theater goers and American popcorn vendors.
Well,
so
we'll see if this is still out in late August when it's a big, huge hit and you can see it in France.
I would love to see this movie in France. I would love to see this with subtitles. That would be be great,
okay.
Actually.
And we got to get to Longlegs, but Pat,
we got to get to Longlegs. We got to get to Longlegs.
You have a wife. You have a lovely wife.
Okay.
And you go on movie nights, date nights. You go to movies. Is this a movie that you would go and see with your wife?
This, you know what? Possibly. I mean, it's something we would, because we both like Channing Tatum. So it is a possibility. Whether that will happen in the next week between now and Twisters is just totally dependent on our schedules. And then once we get to Twisters, that's going to be the pick. And we'll get to that next week. I'll tell you, though, a movie that I definitely would not be seeing with my wife because she does not like scary things is Longlegs. So let's get to it. So I think we're all on the same page. This is going to be the bigger opener of the weekend. This is a horror movie from Oz Perkins, who is the son of Anthony Perkins, star of Psycho. And it stars a scream queen, Micah Monroe, the star of It Follows and other horror movies. And Christopher, what is the buzz amongst the young people on this movie? Are people aware of this? Are people scared of this? Does this have the bubbling of a horror sensation amongst young people?
Me and my friends have tickets for tomorrow at like 9:30 at night. So
wow.
Yeah, I'd say some people know about this. I think the marketing has been very effective. I think the marketing's been great, and like the reviews are stellar. And I think this is definitely going to be a low key horror hit that people probably at the beginning of the year at least did not expect to break out the way it potentially can this weekend.
Wow. Is this a talk to me or larger than talk to me level buzz right now? Because that would be the one that I think of when I think of something that is completely under the radar that the young people knew about, that you had the, oh my God, it was so scary, you've got to go see this factor. I feel like there hasn't been a horror movie since Talk to Me that has had that same kind of buzz.
I think this could turn. I don't think it's at that level yet, but I think people do know about it, and it does have that Talk to Me like underground buzz that it opens pretty good and then legs out like crazy. I think it could be like that.
Okay. Clayton, is this feeling like a must see in the theater for you? You know, you're not necessarily a horror guy, but you are an event guy. And do you think Longlegs could be that type of event where you need to see it to feel like you're in the public conversation?
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, I think this is the buzziest horror movie of the summer for sure. All the marketing, they've been doing such a good job with it. They just released that video. I was talking to Pat around the water cooler at BOHQ, Christopher, before you came in.
The heart rate one?
The heart rate one.
That was so good. Yeah.
It's so smart.
Yeah.
That's such a great gimmick. And I think that to drop that now, people are talking about it. I mean, Neon We saw with Ferrari, they don't have a lot of money. They couldn't push a movie as big as Ferrari, a Michael Mann film.
Mhm.
But they've been doing a really good job with this because the people who are going to see this movie first are the people who are going to react to a video like that. So yeah, I think
Mhm.
this thing is going to do really well. It could, it could open bigger than any other neon film ever, which wouldn't be too crazy. But I mean, it's definitely possible.
Yeah. What do we think about the stars affecting the box office? Nicolas Cage is in this movie, and Nicolas Cage has been trying to have a comeback the last few years. He's been in things that people liked, the Unbearable Weight movie that is the worst title ever. It should have just been called Cage Island. People like that, but the movie bombed. He was in Renfield, and everyone said, "Oh, he's great in that part," but the movie's terrible, and that movie bombed. So he hasn't had that. Dream Scenario was bootleg Charlie Kaufman. That movie didn't do well, didn't get any Oscar noms. So everyone loves Nicolas Cage. Everyone has liked the big movies he's done the last few years, but nothing has clicked yet as a big hit. Pig should have got him an Oscar nom, and it did well, but that was like summer 21. It wasn't gonna, the ceiling was always pretty low on that. Could this be that movie that finally gives Nicolas Cage a out and out box office hit in this comeback? And is he a draw? Is he a draw in this type of movie? Or is it the same thing where like he'll be good in it, but it doesn't really matter for the box office?
I think he is definitely a draw. He's definitely one of those added value elements, and especially when he's
Mhm.
playing like crazy or like kooky characters, because that's almost kind of his persona that he's adopted at this point. I think that's a huge plus, and I think that definitely helps this film at the box office.
They're also doing a very good job of hiding him
Yeah, no one
in
knows
the
what he
way
looks
of,
like,
Mhm.
right?
yeah, and so the thing with that is that that's brilliant because you see him so often. Anytime you pull up your any streaming service, you see 18 Nicolas Cage movies you've never heard of. And
Mhm.
the fact that he's in the cast list but not all over the trailer, I think is story-wise it works, obviously. Like that's why they're doing it. But promotion-wise, knowing he's in there and not knowing what he's doing or what he looks like, I think is brilliant. I mean, I think that's great. It works on both ends there. And so, yeah, I think
Mhm.
he's also gives, as much as he does terrible movies, he does lend some credibility
Hmm.
to this movie in a weird way,
Mhm.
which you would think he couldn't lend credibility to anything anymore. But like you mentioned, Pat, he's still in big budget movies as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and he's always, whenever people watch one of these Nicolas Cage movies, he's always something that people like about them, even if they don't like the movie.
Yeah.
So, which is good and bad because he gets tagged with, it probably won't be a good movie because he's in it. But at the
Mhm.
least, people always know that they're going to like him in the movie. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's horror, and we've had horror adjacent hits. Quiet Place Day One is a huge hit, but is it truly horror? Is it thriller? Is it alien invasion? So you can't fully credit horror with having that giant hit. Something like The Strangers did well, but we haven't had a Megan type breakout or even a Talk to Me type breakout in a while. This feels like it should be it.
Hmm.
It feels like this should be it. Um, but yeah, it does also sort of depend on, is Neon getting this out to the mainstream, or does it need to have a good weekend with just the people who are in the know, and then that'll lend the buzz for it cracks the mainstream in the second and third weekends?
Yeah, I mean that's what happened with Talk to Me. Like it was
Yeah.
A24, so they don't have the marketing to fully market it like it's a summer blockbuster. But it ended up being a word of mouth type of hit, and I think that's exactly what this is going to be.
Yeah. Anyone else in this cast matter? I mean, we haven't talked about the lead, Micah Monroe. I feel like she's another one who gives this movie credibility to the horror fans and to the young people. She's obviously not a mainstream name. She's not Scarlett Johansson, but I do think her being in this lets you know that this is a certain level of horror movie.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't do terrible ones. She does ones that, for the most part, even if they're not huge hits, are like well-regarded horror movies.
She does not the super prestige ones, but I mean, I guess It Follows is A24, so that's a prestige one. But
yeah,
she's in stuff that isn't the lowest common denominator.
Right. She's not in like, I don't know, was there a Jenga horror movie or a she's not in those type of movies. She's not in the
Wish Upon.
Ouija
She's
board
not in
movie.
like Wish.
Yeah.
Although the
Right.
Ouija board movie, the Ouija movies have actually, there's people who really enjoy those movies.
Okay.
And they're
yeah.
like, they're at the higher end, but like those, like Wish Upon, which is an older movie, but that sort of level where you have Ryan Philippe as a dad in it.
Yes. Yeah. She's not in that. She's not in Truth or Dare. She's in like a certain level of horror movie that I think, I'm excited to see this and excited to see how it does. So I think it's time. Let's get into our top 5 predictions for the weekend.
Well, I know we're talking fives. We got to touch on that big news really quickly, because we do have a Prime demo, man, right here. Shrek 5.
Oh, that's going to be an automatic billion dollar baby. Like, I don't know what else there's to say. It's probably going to be huge. I mean, you saw what Puss in Boots did, and that's a spinoff of that movie. So it's going to have the goodwill from that. Everyone, it's Shrek 5. Like, there's not much to say other than that's probably going to be a huge hit. And I grew up with those films. I have a fondness for all those films. Yeah, that's going to be like DreamWorks coming back, like how Pixar's almost kind of back with Inside Out 2, but not fully back. I think this is DreamWorks' version of Inside Out 2.
And that's what summer 2026.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It's taking on a bunch of other fives too. It's taking on
Avengers
supposedly
5.
Avengers 5, which
who
Kang.
knows? Yeah.
Who knows what that's even going to be? Toy Story 5 is coming out then too. And so there's some big movies coming up against it. But I mean, I think I agree. I mean, it took them so long to do this, but I think they might have waited the exact right amount of time.
Yeah, they pulled
like
Cameron Diaz out of retirement for this movie. Like, I feel like I feel like this is definitely going to be an all quadrant type of movie. Cause like even kids that were like maybe like 10 or 11 when those first ones came out now are like fully grown, might have family as a wife and all that stuff. So this could really be a 4 quadrant super smash. There's nothing real else to say. I don't think there's any negatives going into this one.
No, this could be Maverick. This could be Shrek Maverick. Yeah. So let's get into it now. Our top 5s for this coming weekend. Well, actually, one other movie, Clayton, you did before we got on the air when we were at the water cooler. You had a re-release that you wanted us to know about. So what is getting re-released, and what is the theater count as you could find it?
There's no theater count that I could find, but it's wide. It's definitely a wide release, which is something that they've, Disney has done before. I'm talking about Lion King, the 1994 version, the beloved version, is getting a wide re-release. So my assumption with this is that it's probably going to get the same amount of theaters as something like The Nightmare Before Christmas did. And that was in the 2000s. So, and as we saw with the Star Wars re-releases that they did that popped into the top 5 rather recently, there is
are you talking about Lord of the Rings, you mean?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, the Lord of the Rings. Okay. Those popped into the top 5. Though, I mean, that was sneaky re-release. And there is a taste for this. There is an appetite for these sort of movies, especially something that is as big as Lion King. So, Pat, thanks for reminding, because that's going to probably play a part in our top 5.
Is that coming out this weekend?
Lion King is getting a re-release this weekend.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
All right.
Yeah.
So
I
we got to
guess.
factor that in.
Okay.
All right, guys, let's get into it. So, guest choice. Would you like to go first, second, or third?
I
Christopher.
like the second. I like how people have been going second with you guys. I'm gonna stick
All
with it.
all right, Clayton. It's a sad day for you because of what's been happening to Kevin Costner. So, would you like to go first or last?
Why don't you go first? Because I'm just gonna make sure that this is, because I did go by the numbers that this is being released. I assume that this is going to be re-released.
All right.
Let's
Well,
see.
number one is going to be Despicable Me 4. It made 75 million its 3-day last weekend. I think it'll do, yeah, let's say a 50% drop. So that's like 36, 37 million. I think number 2 is still going to be Inside Out 2. It made 30 last weekend. It's going to probably stay in the 20s. So the gap will close a lot between Despicable Me 4 and Inside Out 2, but Inside Out 2 will be number 2. Here is now where does a newbie get in?
Mm-hmm.
And I am going to say a newbie gets in at number 3. I think Longlegs is going to open on the real high end of the tracking. I think it'll do like 18 million. So I think that's number 3. Then it's Quiet Place Day 1 is number 4, probably at like 13 million. And then number 5 is going to be Fly Me to the Moon, Channing Tatum. I do think it does better than Horizon. I think it opens to 12 million and edges out what Horizon did a few weeks ago, which is, again, not great, but the theaters need that quantity, and so they'll be happy that it's in theaters. So that's my top 5. So, Christopher, you want that middle spot, so here you go. What is your top 5 for this weekend?
Yeah, so I'm gonna copy you for the first 2. I think definitely Despicable Me 4, number 1, Slam Doink. Probably makes around 40, 45 million, I'd say. Then yeah, definitely number 2 is gonna be Inside Out 2, probably around the 20 million range. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but I'll stick with 20. Then my number 3, actually, I'm gonna go with Fly Me to the Moon.
Wow,
I'm gonna say
I
that
love it.
makes 13 million this weekend, makes it to the number 3 spot. Then number 4, I'm gonna go with Longlegs. And I do think it's gonna be a hit eventually, but it's gonna need word of mouth. So I'm gonna say it starts off solid with a $10 million opening. And then I do think number 5 is gonna be a Quiet Place, because even though I know it's a quasi horror movie, not exactly horror, I still think it's gonna take some of the. I think Longlegs is going to take some of the competition away from it, and it's going to open at number 5 at maybe 8 or 9 million.
All right. Great. So, Clayton, taking us home, what is your top 5 prediction? Let's see if Lion King re-release is a factor here.
And it is coming out this weekend, so that is a fact. So I think Slam Doink of the week, top 2, Despicable Me 4, number 1, number 2, Inside Out 2. So the rats are going to be eating. I think I agree with Pat. I'm not going to go as high as he did. I do think number 3 is going to be Longlegs, and I'm going to say 13. I think it makes over 10, but I don't think it goes crazy. I do think, like Christopher said, it's going to need to find the audience, because it is neon. As much as we're all excited about it, and I think the Gorehounds are excited about it, you do need to get the other people to see it. And I think the second weekend of it, that drop is going to be so minuscule if it's great, which I think it is going to be great. Underneath that, I'm going to say that this is going to be number 4 is going to be the Lion King re-release. And it is going to make 9.
Okay. Oh.
Wow. And
Wow.
Clayton
He couldn't even finish his top 5.
Disappeared off of our streaming app right now. That was stunning. So obviously, if you're only listening to the podcast feed, you didn't get that dramatic moment where he's disappeared. But if you are a YouTube subscriber to the BO Boys, you witness history. You saw Clayton just completely disappear. Here's the thing on that, Christopher.
Do I get the co-host spot again now? Is that what just happened? Can I claim it from him?
Yes. And I love that happened with you here, because now we've got the footage that we could use on future documentaries when they were sort of like giving the 10 seconds about the Clayton era of the show.
Mhm.
They've got the footage where that era ended.
And
And then, of course,
literally to the
the
second.
golden
Yeah.
era. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, okay, well, he's
Oh, here he
back.
is. There he
He's
is.
back. So the Clayton era does continue for
Sadly.
a little bit longer. So,
Mhm.
Clayton, you disappeared there. You were, I think, on your number 4
5.
pick.
5.
You're on
Yeah.
your
No,
okay.
he just did 4. I think it's time for his number 5.
All right, so here we
Yeah.
go. He's back.
Fly Me to the Moon is going to fly with the Angels. It's going to make $7 million.
Okay,
Okay.
great. So, yeah, there were. I mean, listeners there were wondering whether you were flown to the moon, whether trust me though, what happened to Clayton there, that was not faked. Unlike the moon landing in Fly Me to the Moon, that was real. What happened there was real. So glad you're still with us, Clayton. Christopher and I are both glad.
I don't know about me. I was kind of excited, but
yeah, I sort of heard the shit talking, and it's pretty late in the episode, and I need to do other things. But that we definitely will. There will be a conversation about it later.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll meet you by that third cow from the back after this is over. So guys, email us, theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. Of course, we love getting your boots on the ground reporting, predictions, all that stuff. We've got a bunch of emails we will get to very soon, but continue to send us emails to theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. Christopher, anything new and exciting coming up on our social medias at the BO Boys Pod on Twitter, X, and TikTok? What do you got in store for us?
Just more of the same old video clips. I think I've mentioned this before. Me and Jack are working on a special project for the live show tour, so definitely look out for that. But yeah, other than that, just the great content feed you're used to getting, and also like I just mentioned it. Do not forget to buy your live show tickets. It's going to be the biggest thing. It's going to be bigger than the Eras tour. Honestly,
yes.
This is
So New York tickets. Well, of course, LA is the first show, October 8th. Scott Mendelson, Jeff Bach joining us on stage for that one. So those tickets are on sale. New York City, October 22nd. We've got Sean Donnelly, Tony Zara. We'll be talking Terrifier 3, Smile 2, Venom 3. Those are all coming out right around when the show goes live in New York City. Christopher will be in town, will be on stage. Huge night in New York City, October 22nd. Then, of course, Boston on Saturday, November 16th. Kirk Minahan on stage with us at the Comedy Studio in Cambridge. Those tickets will be on sale very, very shortly. The website is updating as we speak. So tickets on sale probably in the next week for Boston. And of course, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Watch us on YouTube. You could relive the moment where Clayton disappeared there. You could relive that only if you watch the BO Boys YouTube network. And guys, I think that's it. My God, there's nothing left to say.
Yeah,
God, you said it all. You said it all.
Yeah.
Don't step on my lines. Don't step on my lines. You said it all.
Except for.
All right. I'm out.
We'll smell you at the